And back now with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, just back from 2 weeks in Afghanistan and Libya. He's in Clemson, South Carolina this morning, and this was just going to be a little debrief, Senator Graham, on how you think things are in Libya. I mean, in Afghanistan.
I didn't go to Libya, Bob.
I'm sorry, I
didn't
take
go to
that
Libya.
back.
I went to Afghanistan.
But let me just ask you this. You put out a pretty strong statement, you and John McCain and Joe Lieberman yesterday about what's happening in Syria after we saw these horrendous pictures of people being shot and killed and demonstrators. You said it's time for the administration to do more than it's doing. What needs to be done here?
Get the regional partners to tell the Assad he has to go and put everything on the table now, including military force, because if we don't turn this dynamic around, the Red Cross can't go into Syria. It's wholesale slaughter now, and we're about to get Gaddafi gone. I think we need to turn our attention strongly to Syria with a regional cooperation like we have in Libya.
Well, and when you say it's time to think about military force, you're talking about sending in U.S. troops into Syria? What are you talking about?
Put on the table with the regional partners. Turkey is being overrun by Syrian refugees, to put on the table at the United Nations in an international way aid to the Syrian people. Humanitarian disasters are bound. What we did in Libya to protect the people against a rogue regime. If it made sense to protect the Libyan people against Gaddafi, and it did because they were going to get slaughtered if we hadn't sent NATO in when he was on the outskirts of Benghazi, the question for the world, have we gotten to that point in Syria? And I think we may not be there yet, but we're getting very close. So if you really care about protecting the Syrian people from slaughter, now's the time to let Assad know that all options are on the table.
And I think you also call for expelling the Syrian ambassador from the United States.
It has gotten to the point where Gaddafi's behavior and Assad's behavior are indistinguishable. The reason we went into Libya is to protect the Libyan people from wholesale slaughter. When they protested, Gaddafi started killing them in the streets. He took his army, turned them on his own people. That's exactly what's happening in Syria. If we could have a power change, regime change in Syria that breaks Syria from Iran, the world would be a much better place. But it's going to take regional and international cooperation to get there. But if you really care about the Syrian people, preventing them from being slaughtered, you need to put on the table all options, including a model like we have in Libya.
Let me turn now to Afghanistan, which is why we invited you here this morning. So you're just back. You were there, what, a couple of weeks? You do your reserve training.
Yeah, I was there as Senator Graham and as Colonel Graham spent 8 days. 2 years ago, we about lost Afghanistan. We didn't have enough troops. President Obama made the right decision to send 30,000 surge forces in. We're now on offense. The enemy's under siege in the south. They're recruiting 12-year-old suicide bombers. The places we'd lost in the south, we now have back. The Afghan people and security forces are getting much bolder against the enemy. So I'm very encouraged that we're on offense. We've got a long way to go, but this has turned around in the last year pretty dramatically on the security front.
Are we going to be able to start bringing these troops home, as President Obama said we would do? Can we do that on schedule?
Yes, sir. I think in the next few weeks, I look, as Secretary Gates and General Petraeus have said, for a modest withdrawal, somewhere in the 3,000 to 5,000 range, reducing surge forces from 30 by 3,000 to 5,000. But if the Afghan security forces, Bob, keep getting better, their army and police are better today than any time I've seen. The training programs work much better. We could stay on track to reduce our forces by 2014. The goal is to transition to Afghan control. There are 98,000 U.S. forces in Afghanistan. If progress continues in Afghanistan, where there are no safe havens for the insurgents, virtually no safe havens, we could have a substantial number of our troops at home with the Afghans in the lead if we'll stay with the program we have today. The biggest threat to Afghanistan is no longer inside the country. It is Pakistan's safe havens.
And what about Pakistan? CIA Director Leon Panetta was there, and he kind of read the riot act to the intelligence service there. What about this?
Yeah. Well, I think it's the biggest threat to our efforts in Afghanistan. When we provide information to the Pakistanis about IED factories in Pakistan on their side of the border being used to kill our troops, they give the information to the enemy, and these places are Before we can get there, the Pakistani army can get there to neutralize these threats, the IED factories are disassembled. And quite frankly, Bob, I'm tired of telling a South Carolina family, sorry about losing your son in Afghanistan to an IED made in Pakistan, and there's nothing we can do about it. So my message to the Pakistanis, you got to choose who you're with. And the safe havens in Pakistan are the biggest threat to our progress in Afghanistan. I appreciate the drone attacks, but we need benchmarks and measurements in terms of future cooperation with Pakistan and Afghanistan. We need to start measuring our progress in both countries, and we're on a collision course with Pakistan. If this doesn't change soon, I would urge the President to use more aggressive military force against safe havens in the Pakistan side of the border being used to kill our troops and undermine progress in Afghanistan. This cannot sustain itself.
All right, Senator Graham, thank you so much, and I'll be back in a moment with some final thoughts.